All right, so we are live, everyone. My name is Jesse, and thank you so much for continuing to join us as we keep going with our Global Biodiversity Festival. Over 50 programs, 3 days, all in support of 6 incredible conservation organizations. So I know Joe kicked off our presentation to begin the day highlighting those organizations, but I just want to note, if everyone who had been watching for our first 4 programs gave $15 only, our fundraiser would be over instantly. So you can check that out on our site, globalbiofest.com. We encourage you to use the Global BioFest hashtag as well, and share some cool pictures of some wildlife in your backyards with Backyard Bio, hashtag Backyard Bio. All right, we've been to the Amazon, we've been to Tanzania, we've been to Sri Lanka, and now we are going to Switzerland to meet with Dr. Daisy Hessenberger, who is going to talk to us today about nature-based solutions. Nature is not only a beautiful thing, but it can be the solution to a lot of other issues in society, in the world, and we're going to learn a little bit more about that and her work with the IUCN. Without further ado, thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Hessenberger, and take us away.
Thank you, and I have to say I'm really excited to get started. It was great to have that introduction, thank you, but I'm like raring to go because I do feel this urgent need to communicate nature-based solutions today. I do want to start off with a warning. This is going to be interactive. This speech contains a lot of questions. It looks like I'm doing the hard work here. It might look like I'm a little nervous. But actually you're going to be doing some of the work. So I'm going to be asking you some questions and hopefully getting you to stand up, because I think we've probably all been sitting at our computers for too long. So starting off with that list of questions, nature-based solutions. Who here has heard that term before? And if you have, if you could stand up. Look at Jesse, so you better stand up. Awesome. Okay, so maybe you've heard it before, but who here has heard it about 100 times in the last couple of days?
A few times in the last couple of days.
Okay, so you can stay seating.
So I like this banter, Daisy. We're gonna have some fun together over the next 25 minutes.
Yeah, I think so. I want to avoid the talking heads effect. I'd love to be in a room with everybody who's watching now. So thank you for joining me. So okay, maybe a couple of you stood up saying, yeah, you know, Daisy, I know where you're coming from. I work in this sector. I've heard it hundreds of times. So here is who here is willing to stand up and define exactly what it means?
I mean, I could try, but I don't know. I think you're going to do a better job than I am. And for
yeah, I better actually stand up.
Yeah, you've got to stand up. You've got to let us know.
Exactly. Well, that's hopefully what I'm going to do. And I think most people, even within my organization, wouldn't stand up because, well, could be nerves, but they are complicated things. And so I'm going to try and define them for you today and really show you how you are part of them and what you can do towards them. So nature-based solutions are often forgotten ally when we're trying to reach our global goals. And now, again, a little bit of action on your side. I want you to close your eyes. Poor Jesse's my guinea pig. And I want you to think about, so what do you think when you hear me say nature-based solutions? Maybe there's just a color coming up. Maybe you're thinking of your backyard bio and, you know, I found some carpenter bees living in the buildings nearby me, although they're probably harming those buildings. Maybe you're thinking of perfect ecosystems, rainforests, pristine coral reefs. Or maybe you're thinking about sustainable agriculture and green cities. You could think about a lot of things. I've heard some people just think of a worm when I say nature-based solutions. So now let me tell you what I think when I see nature-based solutions. And this is where I get to start sharing my screen. As Jesse said, I'm here in Switzerland, and I can bet that when I say Switzerland, let me just get that up and running. You probably, a few of you are thinking of cheese and chocolate. That's definitely what I think about a lot when I'm here. But I live on Lake Geneva, and across Lake Geneva are these stunning mountains, the Alps. And out there in those Alps are active nature-based solutions. They're all around us. And the example that I love, because I use it all the time when I use the roads in Switzerland, are the ecosystems that really safeguard our lives and our livelihoods. So in Switzerland, you do have a danger. You're at risk of stones falling because it's a very mountainous country. There's a risk of landslides, of avalanches. And over years, before we even had this word, nature-based solutions, we're already planting trees above roads and above infrastructure to protect people. And so these are just some of the alpine forests that are native to Switzerland. Sorry, Jesse, I'm just going to say, can you see the slides full screen if it's like that, or?
Almost. So at the top of your screen, there's a little button that's got like a little play symbol. So the very far left right now along the taskbar, you've got the little arrow symbol, and then there's one that shows like a presenter screen with a little plus. Click that, and that should bring up everything full screen. Sorry for the trouble.
No, it's okay. Yeah. So
Doesn't-
nature. Yeah.
Go ahead. It doesn't like you today. That's okay.
Yeah. No,
We'll make the
that's
best.
fine. I've had a lot of technology going on today, and so here again. So you've now heard me say this word nature-based solutions, probably up to being able to stand, for 100 times. So what are they, Daisy? Like, what are we talking about here? And actually, I want to start with what are not nature-based solutions. So maybe some of you were thinking of, green energy when I was saying nature-based solutions. You were thinking of renewable energy, of wind farms or tidal energy, or, maybe the buses in your town run on that green energy. And those are incredibly important solutions. We face some really diverse challenges in the world today, and we need those, we call them nature-derived solutions, where the resource comes from nature, but they're not nature-based solutions, and I'll explain why. Your nature-derived solutions are things like biofuels or, renewable energy. Or the other thing you might be thinking of is nature-inspired solutions, something called biomimicry. For example, there's a beetle in the desert whose carapace, that's their shell, actually can collect water from the air, just from the dew, and that's how they can survive out there. And scientists are looking at that for water collection systems. Again, massively important work. If we want a sustainable future, if we want a low carbon future, we have to also look into renewable energy and be inspired from the nature around us. And we've known that for centuries. But what I'm here today to talk about is something a bit different. This global movement that's really starting up, or actually in full flow, about nature-based solutions. And so, okay, this is going to be the slide with the most text, which is, what are nature-based solutions? Okay, well, I work for the largest and oldest environmental network in the world, the International Union for the Conservation of Nature. You can see the acronym there, IUCN. I find that a lot easier than saying International Union for the Conservation of Nature when I'm networking. So nature-based solutions are defined as actions to protect, sustain, sustainably manage, and restore. So those are the three actions. Natural or modified ecosystems. So you were right, thinking about pristine rainforests and green cities, those are both natural and modified. Nature-based solutions address societal challenges, things like climate change, disaster risk reduction, food and water security. They address human health issues, decreasing temperature in cities, for example, and they also help with economic and social development. They address our biodiversity crisis and can address our climate crisis at the same time. They can do that providing human well-being and biodiversity benefits. So biodiversity is really at the core of nature-based solutions. And I mentioned one, using forests to protect roads from landslides, but you could use wetlands to filter water. You could green cities to create corridors and decrease pollution. These are all potential nature-based solutions. And nature-based solutions are really this second pillar of conservation. For so long, we've safeguarded nature, and that is still necessary, but we also need to safeguard society at the same time. And nature-based solutions really bring those two together. So it's really, that's why it's maybe a new term. That's why perhaps you haven't heard it before. And this idea of conservation being a ring-fence protected, pristine area is changing. We need to work in harmony with the nature around us. Nature-based solutions, it makes sense as well for nature-based solutions to really target these societal challenges, these global challenges, because nature underpins everything that society needs to survive and prosper, not just survive. So for those of you who don't immediately recognize the wonderful rainbow of colors here, these are the Sustainable Development Goals, our global goals, so you could say. And at the bottom, you have the ones that relate to our natural resources, the biosphere. And they really underpin the rest, things like no poverty, equal opportunities and rights, education and jobs. All these are underpinned by the biosphere. So again, it's not the only solution, which brings me to my next part of what are nature-based solutions. They're not standalone solutions. They work with hybrid technology. They work with green and gray engineering. If any of you live near a river basin, that river probably uses green engineering as well as some gray, as well as some walls to protect people and keep that water clean for you. Okay, so I think I've really sold you on nature-based solutions, hopefully. I mean, they're beautiful and wonderful, and at their heart is having a positive net gain for biodiversity, again, with human well-being benefits. So maybe some of you are like, this sounds wonderful. I love this win-win solution, but Daisy, if they're so great, you know, why are we having this trouble? Why are they not around me? Hopefully some of them do have you, some of you do have them around you. You know, why are they not out there? And I ask myself the question, and so does the rest of my team, a lot of the time, because we hear it so often. We want more funding, more research for nature-based solutions. We want more action, more promises, more words on nature-based solutions, more meetings. But how can we fund nature-based solutions when we don't have a way to talk to different sectors? I've just told you how they bring together gray and green, and they're a global approach. Well, how do we talk between each other across languages, regions of private and public? How can you really sustainably manage a land for people and nature when you haven't talked to the people who live closest, the people who understand it the most? How can you call and keep talking for more nature-based solutions when we're not just getting out there and doing them? And there are nature-based solutions out there. I will turn back to my message of hope, but there is an urgent need. There's a reason why I'm talking to you. You might, like, you know, at the other end of this little tiny webinar camera, hello, is a global public. I know I tuned into the BioFest because I love nature and exploring. So why am I telling you about nature-based solutions and SDGs and adaptation? It's because it's not just about being a standalone solution, you know, oh, bring gray and green together. Nature-based solutions are not standalone solutions when it comes to people. We cannot do this alone. Nature-based solutions cannot be made alone behind closed doors. They have to be designed at scale. And so in the top right corner, this is one of our projects in the mountainous regions of Nepal, where we're looking at making eco-safe roads, but not coming in and just building. It's about talking to the local communities who know their needs the best and know their ecosystems the best. In the bottom right corner, we have women in Mozambique who we're working with to put together sustainable livelihoods. And both of those are beautiful, beautiful areas, beautiful pictures, beautiful biodiversity. The third picture maybe doesn't seem that beautiful, but to me it is, because that is a lot of my work. I, in my free time, get into nature as much as I can, but a lot of my work is going out with my excellent colleagues. She's really small there in the background, Veronica Ruiz, and building capacities and talking to people, bringing tools to people. They have the knowledge, and perhaps we have the tools and the capacity to mainstream biodiversity, to upscale these nature-based solutions. You can probably tell this is something I feel really passionate about. And so I'm going to also end with, and I know we're going to leave a lot of time for a Q&A, but I really want to end with the message of hope. And this is personal to me. This is my hope for you, because I'm a young professional at IUCN, this massive environmental network, this massive union that stretches around the world. And I've talked to a lot of different people. Part of my work is working on this global standard for nature-based solutions, really defining what nature-based solutions are and giving that framework so that we can talk to other people. And while I've talked to people, it's only become more and more obvious that we need to work together. And specifically, the thing that pulls at my heartstrings is the need to work together in an inclusive manner. We need women, we need youth, we need Indigenous peoples. And when we think about nature-based solutions in the Pacific, they have a beautiful term. It's called intergenerational solutions. This is not about creating solutions for now, although the demand is real and we do need solutions now. It's also about creating solutions that will be there for the next generations. And we have the wisdom of elder people like my grandmother, who's now 95 and who actually got me started in my passion for the natural world. And we have a huge wealth of people working towards nature-based solution. And more we're hearing the narrative of youth activism and youth voices. So my call is really also to this next generation, because it is now, we are the generations, whether you're, the older generations or the ones in the middle or the young generations, we all need to work together. Because it's the youth that have that perspective. It's the youth who will be seeing and nurturing these nature-based solutions when the rest of us are gone. And this morning alone, I was in a webinar talking about nature-based solutions with a vast, diverse group of stakeholders. Stakeholders is just another word for people who are invested in some way in biodiversity, which includes yourselves, biodiversity stakeholders. And in that room were 2 youth. So it's about getting people into rooms, but it's also about going there yourselves, because we can open that door, we can set up those webinars, increasingly webinars instead of real events in this post-COVID world. We can open those doors, and then you need to walk through them. You need to demand for the mainstreaming of nature-based solutions. Okay, so now back to my message of hope. I hope now that when you close your eyes and think about nature-based solutions, you'll be thinking of the societal challenges that you can tackle with nature-based solutions. You'll be thinking about how they need to be designed at scale. They can be a small action, but you need to understand the rest of your river basin. I hope you understand, I hope you think of the biodiversity net gain, the beautiful complexity that will come from your nature-based solutions. I hope you'll also remember the economic feasibility. Nature-based solutions can be more cost-effective. And I really hope that it's cemented inside you that the inclusive governance, that transparent communication, working with stakeholders, it's not just because we should do that and it's ethical, it's also because that is key to the sustainability of nature-based solutions. And, I hope you're not too scared of the uncertain times we are in, but I hope you remember that these solutions are going to be adaptively managed. This is not about dropping in nature-based solutions in the mountains of Switzerland and leaving it be. They have to also be adaptively managed, because climate change will put different pressures in the coming years on our ecosystems. And I know that the realists among you are aware that this is not a win-win solution. There is no such thing as a win-win-win solution for all. So when you think of nature-based solutions, I hope you'll understand the trade-offs that are necessary, that some might have to bear higher costs today for greater gains tomorrow for everyone, that it might provide benefits to people in different ways. And we have to take that into account. And finally, I hope and aspire that you'll think of nature-based solutions as the huge potential that they offer to us. Specifically, that we can get them into the narratives of policies. We can get them into the global vernacular, the global vocabulary of the general public. We can see them in the news. We'll be able to see them from our windows. They will be mainstreamed at a global level. So what you're unaware of is that I've just run you through the 8 criteria that make up the definition of a nature-based solutions. And that has been the majority of my work for 8 years. With that, I'm done here, and I leave you with that message of hope. And I'd love to take some questions.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Hessenberger. Do you want to come out of screen share generally, just a big red button in the top middle of your screen, and we can have a little bit of a conversation about all this.
Okay, great.
You are wildly passionate. I mean, this is clearly something that really impacts you and you want to share in a really deep and personal way, which is lovely. How did you get interested in this? Like, what was there a single experience that prompted this, or is it a lifetime of different work that all coalesced together in this great project?
It was a string of individual circumstances, like our lives are. I was always interested in nature as a small child. My 95-year-old grandmother used to give me Gerald Durrell books, and my mother, I've had a life full of strong women interested in the natural world.
Yeah.
And so I've always, as a kid, I always wanted to be a vet or live in a rainforest. 8-year-old Daisy would be very upset that I'm mostly in front of a computer. But I went through a period in my life where I pushed myself to go and live in nature and really, see what on the ground conservation looks like. And so a changing moment for me was going to Madagascar to work on protection of this littoral forest. Yeah. I feel like you may have been to Madagascar, Jesse.
Well, personally, but it's funny that a lot of people have mentioned in the last few weeks in this program that Madagascar particularly was like a really inspiring place for them. And I'm really happy with one of the charities we're supporting is Planet Madagascar that gets to highlight that. So,
brilliant.
Go on.
Because it's such a unique place. An incredible amount of species are so unique to Madagascar. And I went there really to, reconnect with what my younger self wanted, to live in the forest. So I lived in a tent in the literal forest, working with an NGO there towards the protection and monitoring of lemurs and the plant life. I have a PhD in plant sciences, so lemurs are absolutely adorable, but I admit I'd get really excited. There's a lot of pictures of me in large piles of moss. But when I was there, it really hit me, the people who live there. I was a visitor, and the people who live there, you can't ask people to stop hunting lemurs when they're starving themselves. If your child is starving, you can't stop someone. Yeah, you would feed your child. And now we have the same narrative, and that I've heard at a bigger scale. When we're talking about nature-based solutions, at the core is helping people. If you're looking for protection from flooding or a tsunami, would you put your grandmother behind a wall that we've been working with, someone says 90% chance it won't fall over. Whereas mangroves, it's because they're more complex systems, it's a little less secure, those statistics. I know where I put my grandmother at the moment, behind the wall, but I'm excited about, the hybrid solutions. But that work in Madagascar, it put humans at the center. You have to protect both. You can't work on one in isolation to the other. And then I was very lucky to start working with the International Union for the Conservation of Nature with a fabulous Radhika Murthy, who tells me over and over again that I am not the expert. We are not the experts. It is the local people who know their nature the best. We're just there to enable and empower and incentivize.
What has been so much fun for me in the really early days, we are literally 5 talks into over 50 these 3 days, is that every single one has brought up this idea of the interconnected nature of nature and humanity. Not a single one of our talks hasn't focused on the fact that if you protect nature, you protect human communities as well, and that you need to have that conversation, and that all this conservation starts at a local level. If you don't get buy-in and support and interest from local communities, conservation efforts are doomed. And not only that, but when you work with communities, they're keen to protect the area around them. I love that you highlighted that you can't blame a person that wants to shoot a lemur to hunt for their child, and you can't blame a poacher that that income would be more than they'd make in 10 years. There are different people down the line that are more to blame in issues like that. I love this. I'm so happy that you brought that up. So
it's a complicated, go on.
It is.
Please go on.
No, it's extremely complicated. And go on, please do.
And I think when things are complicated, we think, there is no solution, or it's too complicated a solution. So that's the beauty. We need all the different types of solutions. We're not saying nature-based solutions are the only solution. We need renewable energy. We need these other approaches, and we need everyone to give what they can. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, certainly, it might not be the only solution, but you did a really good job making a case for nature-based solutions today. So thank you so much for that. Now, you talked about going to Madagascar, and most people will not get the opportunity to travel to really exotic, unique locations to get inspired by wildlife. So for people at home, wherever they may be, and again, we've had over 80 countries sign up to be viewing this broadcast over the next few days, what can you recommend for them to spark that inspiration and get them really passionate like you are?
Absolutely. For me, nature is not about just Madagascar and those pristine forests, right? I've said it's about what's around us. And a huge way that I can explore my nature just outside is using the macro function on my phone.
Okay.
The same you can do with buying a magnifying glass, or if you have a pair of binoculars, you can just hold them to your smartphone. And I've gotten really telescopic photos of all sorts like that. But a lot of nature that I find is just on the ground in front of me. So it doesn't mean it's a lot of insects. I live in Europe. It's insects and plants. But just the other day, because of coronavirus, I'm living in a studio. I can't go to my office. So every morning I go on a fake commute. I walk around a local cathedral, actually, and for about half an hour. It's great. Call my mom, my grandmother. But it's incredible taking that time out in my urban setting, because I've seen all this nature I haven't noticed before, including this whole community of carpenter bees. And I took a photo with my macro function on my phone, and that allows me to really get down to that small level. Yeah.
Nice. By the way, you couldn't have done a better pitch for our backyard bio hashtag if you tried that. So for anyone at home, if you want to use the macro function, use binoculars, share pictures of things like that. Because I mean, the insect world, what inspired me as a 10-year-old, I went in my backyard and found 72 species of
Oh,
insect,
wow.
invertebrate, all sorts of amazing things. And I think everyone has that potential, and it really makes you understand how amazing biodiversity is. So great message. Alex wants to know, as our last question today, these sessions go so fast, we get to cover so much so quickly, it's fantastic. Alex wants to know if there's any additional readings out there or speakers on nature-based solutions that you could recommend. He wants to learn more about the stuff that you talked about today. Where would you send him?
Alex, that is absolutely great news. I'm very excited for you to start exploring nature-based solutions. I would, I do work for IUCN, so I would definitely recommend checking out the Nature-Based Solutions group page on IUCN. But there's really a wealth of data out there. But yeah, if you head to our page, you can have, there'll be access to readings there, documents, some webinars. For a more technical webinar, we did a live stream this morning, which included some youth as well, and it went really well. It's on YouTube, it's on the IUCN YouTube page. I would say that is a great, more technical introduction to nature-based solutions.
Fantastic. IUCN YouTube page. So once you're done watching 3 straight days of programs with us, go to that one. So Monday morning, you can watch the Nature-Based Solutions IUCN page. Daisy, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us today. We really, really appreciate it.
Thank you, Jesse. And thank you for everybody watching and listening to me and watching my face.
Outstanding. And you're welcome back anytime. Again, our typical thing with Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants, 6-7 classrooms at a time from all around the world. We'd love to have you back and talk about that with some really, really keen kids like Alex. So till then, have a wonderful rest of your day. And thanks again, Daisy.
Okay, thank you. Bye.